Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of To a Woman's Heart, where we uplift, motivate, encourage, and empower women. Well, look, let me say, I'm having a little technical difficulties today. So I get set up here, and then, you think you get it all figured out. One thing working, another don't. So, anyway, it's all good. We're going to go on anyway. Hopefully, everybody has had a, let me see. Okay, so I'm gonna take me out of me over here. Nope. Wrong one. All right, let me get this together. All right, let me get this together. Remove from screen. This is just too much. So here we go. All right. So hopefully you can hear me now. That's a good thing. Hopefully everybody, you can hear now. You can hear now. All right. All right. So we're good. So again, we're talking about flipping the script, blame, and ownership. All right. So the meaning of blame is to hold responsible, find fault with. And the example is, I don't blame you for leaving. Number two, it says to place responsibility for a fault, error, etc., usually followed by, I blame the accident on her. And then the third one is, these are all verbs, informal, blame, damn, used as a mild curse. The noun meaning is an act of attributing fault, censure, reproof. The judge said he found nothing to justify blame in the accident. Responsibility for anything deserving. We must all share the blame for this deplorable conditions. Okay, and so now ownership means the state or fact of being an owner. Legal right of possession, proprietorship. Okay, and so I picked these two words because in life, when things don't go the way we think they should go, sometimes we have a tendency to blame others for things not going the way we think they should go. Um, and we don't want to take ownership to our part in what happens or how it happens. Say a relationship. Let's use that as an example. Say you met someone and you started to date them, and when it started out at first, the relationship seemed to be very good at first. Everything was hunky dory, and he did all the things that you wanted him to do. And then after a while, things started to shift in a different direction. And your temperament started to change, and you started to feel like he was doing certain things to you. And, you was just reading into all kinds of things. You was making things out of what wasn't. Um, and so you start placing the blame on your mate that the relationship is no longer workable. But you're not taking ownership to you being broken, to you being damaged, to you being not healed from prior things in prior relationships. So you take what happened to you in other relationships and you kind of pass it on to the person that you are presently dating, who has no idea of what somebody has done to you. And so that means you're taking what somebody, your problems, and you're placing the blame on them for the issues that you haven't resolved as it relates to a relationship. And now you don't want to take ownership because you haven't faced those demons that you was dealing with, those things that you didn't find closure, those things that you were not healed from. Um, so we can say, even in parenting, um, if you have somebody, when you're not like a drug addict, when a mother becomes addicted, and the system takes their children and say they find a family member who is going to take over the duties of being the parent, the guardian of that child or children, because the mother is addicted to alcohol, drugs, or whatever she's addicted to. It's an addiction. And so that means she's unable to step into the role of being the parent. And so now those responsibilities have been given to a family member. But when that individual who is addicted, they be they get better, instead of them taking ownership because of their addiction caused a separation from their kids, which led to the relative taking over raising the kids. Now you want to place the blame that my kids don't love me, my kids don't respect me, my kids don't listen to me, my kids don't do this, my kids don't want to spend time with me because you all have fed them things about me. You have made me look like this monster, and all these things. And sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not. But at the same time, you can't pass the blame for what you did to yourself to somebody else. You have to take ownership to your part. You have to take ownership. You need to take ownership because you played a part in the separation from your children. It's nobody else's fault but yours. But I say this all the time. It's more to being a mother than carrying a child. It's a responsibility. It is a full-time job. It's not something that you step in and you step out when you feel like stepping in and stepping out. And a lot of times, even some individuals who have children at a young age, they feel like their mothers or grandmothers are owed them um, to help them raise their child. And they're not. You decided, as my mama used to say, you decided to lay down and you decided to go ahead and get pregnant and have that baby. So don't place your faults, your blames on somebody else when you should take ownership for doing what you made the conscious decision to do. Now, having a kid at a young age, having a kid at 20 and 30, being a parent is not an easy task. It's not. Parents don't come with instructions. We've said this over and over again. But it seems to be so easy to blame others for our faults and failures when it comes down to raising our kids, except for looking at the individual in the mirror. And as I've said plenty of times, to take ownership to your part. Because relationships is a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. It works two ways. It goes and it comes. So you got to give to get. So you can expect that because you decide to bring a child in this world, that your mother or your grandmother or auntie or whoever the relative is responsible for raising your child. You can't expect that. You cannot. That's unfair. It's totally unfair because you make the decision when you know as an individual that you are not equipped to handle raising a kid, when you know you are not financially stable to raise a child, when you know you are not mentally prepared to raise a kid, why would you put yourself in that position that you know that you're not capable of doing, and then you want to blame everybody else for something you decided to do? You want to act like an adult, then take ownership like a grown person. That's what your decision is. You have to take ownership to your decision. That's nobody else's fault but yours. And again, I'm going to say this again, as I've said many times before: babies do not hold men. They do not. I don't care if you have twins or triplets or whatever. They don't hold a man. They don't. So, and then some of you all, when you have these babies, and then after the fact, the relationship is still pretty good. And then after the fact, he walks away. And then you're stuck with this child. You're stuck. Now you feel some type of way, but blame yourself. Because if he told you that he wasn't ready for kids, why did you think by you getting pregnant it was going to change his mind? Take ownership to your decisions. If somebody tell you something, believe what they say. If you see it, the relationship is going a certain way, believe what you see. But we don't want to believe what they say, and we definitely don't want to believe what we see. And it's so easy for us to pass the blame to somebody else for our foolishness. And we should stop doing that. Put on your big girl panties, step in them with both legs, one leg at a time, and pull them right on up. Take ownership to what you stepped into. That's your mess that you stepped into, and that's your mess that you created. Bottom line, you can't blame anybody else for that except for the person who's looking in the mirror. That's it, and that's all. Okay, somebody said a person's success and failures are entirely their own responsibility. You are right, but a lot of women don't believe that. They just don't. It's so easy. I think the problem is for us, it's easy to pass the blame to somebody else or try to make somebody else feel bad for the bad decision that we made or place a guilt trip on somebody for the decision that we made that didn't turn out right. Again, being an adult means owning up to your decisions, whether they're good or whether they're bad. Because we don't always make the best decision. But again, as I say, the best thing we can do is to learn from our mistakes. But the question is, do we really want to learn from our mistakes? Or do we like wallowing in our mistakes? And do we want to play the victim all the time? You should ask yourself that question. Is it easier for us to blame and play the victim versus taking ownership? Because when you talk about taking ownership, that means you have to look at yourself in the mirror and acknowledge the part that you played in the problem. You have to say, okay, it was my fault. I saw this, but I ignored it and I went on anyway. Like women who blame others for breaking up their relationship. Well, going in relationship, he wasn't a faithful individual from the get-go. He had a history of cheating. He had a history of a wandering eye. You knew this. You knew it up front. And you thought that you was the trophy on the shelf that was going to be able to change who he is or who he was. And a person will not change unless they're ready to change. And the only way that man will change is for the right woman. Now they will make some adjustments if it's the person to whom they choose. But because you choose them, don't mean that they choose you. So take ownership to that. We've all been done when it comes down to relationships. We've all accepted some things that, we beat ourselves down for. I saw this coming, but I choose to ignore. But you can't blame it on him. You have to take ownership to that, because that man showed you that he wasn't faithful. That man showed you that he wasn't um, able to be financially stable. That man showed you that he didn't want to hold a job. That man showed you that he liked for you to take care of him. But you wanted to feel wanted. Maybe you wanted to feel needed. Maybe you wanted to feel what you thought was a perception of love, and it wasn't love. And so you decided to overlook some things from this man. And when it didn't work out, you want to blame him instead of blaming yourself, or taking ownership for you staying in the madness, because you have an option to walk away when things are not looking right and when things are not working right. But a lot of times we don't walk away because we want to save face with our friends and with our families. And I've said this over and over again. Why would you want to be miserable? Why would you want to stay in relationship with a person that don't respect you, a person that walk over on you like a welcome mat, and you sit there and you just bear it? The grin is gone because it's been done so many times. You just sit there and you swallow. And then the sad part, if you have a daughter, she's watching all these things that you as the mother is allowing this man to do to you. And then when she gets older, she blames you for what you didn't show her and what you didn't teach her. And then you get mad and say it's not your fault when actually it is. And you don't want to take ownership because you played a part. Whether you realize it or not, kids watch what their parents do and they watch what their parents say. So we have to step up to the plate and, like I say, put our big girl panties on and take ownership. And so people like to blame others to boost their own egos. Well, that's true too. So I'll blame you to make myself look good. And I know I'm at fault. I know I'm the causer of the chaos and the confusion. And it's so easy. But how long do we live our lives blaming others for what we should have done and didn't do? And I said this the other day. When parents, when mothers give away their kids, whether they put them up adoption, whether a family member take them in, whether however the kids end up being raised in another household, you can't be mad when they give that other individual more respect and they listen to the other individual more than they listen to you, because you wasn't there when they needed you the most. You was not there. And I'll say this so everybody can know this: motherhood starts when the doctor says you are pregnant. You don't have to wait till 9 months to deliver the baby and know that you need to be parenting your child. Parenting starts when the doctor says you are pregnant. That's when it actually starts. Now, we make the decision of when we want to parent and when we don't want to parent. See, it's easy to lay down and get the baby. It's easy to lay down and make the baby. But it's hell when the baby get here. Because children, babies require things that some of you women are not ready to deal with. You're not. It requires the sacrificing of your time. It requires the sacrificing of your freedom to do what you normally would have to worry about who's going to watch your kid. Now you got to find babysitters, and everybody's not going to want to watch your kid. And so now you're going to blame people. I got this baby and nobody wants to help me. Well, first of all, your family members, you didn't get their permission to have the baby. They didn't tell you that when you got pregnant and had the baby, that they was going to be ready, available babysitters. That's a choice. Nobody is obligated to watch your kid. They're not. So you can't pass that blame onto your relatives. Nobody want to help me. They don't want to help me watch my kids. They don't want to help me buy no pampers. They don't want to help me buy no milk. That is a free choice. That's a free choice. It's not an obligation. The obligation is the parent to the child. When the doctor say you're pregnant and that 9 months is up, if you had a baby at 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, that is your obligation. Not your mother, not your grandmother, not your grandfather, not your sister, not your brother, not your friend. It is not their obligation. The child is yours, not theirs. And if your parents have raised their kids, they raise their kids. Those are their grandkids. They can tell you when they're ready to be bothered with them, and they can tell you when they're ready for them to go home because they are not their obligation. So stop doing the guilt trip and going around and telling people, you blaming your stresses and your anxiety on your grandmamas or your aunties and your uncles because your sisters, your siblings, because they won't watch your baby or babies. When you decide to lay down, and sex is good. The feeling of sex is good. It's good at that moment. But the results that can come from it, I don't think we sit down and we think about those things. 9 months is a long time. 9 months. And then in those 9 months, have you really mentally prepared for the interests of that child? Now, you can blame it on everybody else. I'm not ready because nobody helped me. Nobody throw me a baby shower. You can blame all these excuses on everybody else. But the responsibility is yours and the dad's if he's still in the picture. Take ownership to that. When y'all decided, whether you're married or not, that you was going to bring a child into this world, the ownership of the responsibility of that child falls on you as the parent. Nobody else. That is your responsibility. And when that child gets here, that child needs to be fed, needs to have the diaper change, it needs to be bathed, it needs to have a bed to sleep in. All that needs to get back and forth to the doctor. But again, do we really think about these things? We don't. We just don't. When relationships or marriages break up and they go, it don't turn out right for whatever the reason may be, we blame everybody else for the breakup, except for the individuals that's in the relationship. Now, we tell the story to our family members and our friends the reasons why the relationship broke up, but do we really tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help us God, of what part we played in the breakup? It's easy to blame your ex-husband. He was no good. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. As vice versa, he can blame you too. But what part did you play in relationship not working? Because a lot of times, what we start out doing as women to get the man, we don't continue to do. We start out dressing nice. We start out doing our hair, and we start out, doing our makeup and looking nice. We start out cooking little meals here and there. We start doing little things to draw him in. And then once you draw him in, now you're married to him. You don't want to have sex with him anymore. Communication is nil to none. You no longer want to do your hair. You no longer want to do your makeup. You no longer want to go out and have a date night. You're always tired. There's always an excuse why you can't do what you did when you first got him. And so my mom always said, what you do to get them is the same thing you have to do to keep them. So then you get mad if he goes to the job and when he leaves home, you're in your pajamas, you're in your house coat with your rags tied around your head, with your granny panties on. He go to work or sit in the virtual office and see the women all made up, and he turn around and look at you, and you walking past with that raggedy housecoat on, that rag over your head, the granny panties that you done had on all day long. You could have got up and washed your butt, put on some jogger pants, some leggings, and a t-shirt, did something. So you just can't pass the blame on to him all the time when it comes down to the break of the relationship. You can't pass that buck to him all the time. We as women have to stand in the mirror and take ownership for our part. Do we get tired? Yes. Do we have a lot on our plate? Yes, we do. But the same thing you would want him to do for you is the same thing you should want to do for him. You can't put that blame on anybody else. You just can't. And then you can't compare your relationship to somebody else because it's not your relationship. You have to work your relationship that works best for you. So you can't compare somebody else's relationship to your relationship because it's not your relationship. You don't know the dynamics of nobody else's relationship. You don't know the dynamics of that mate. You only know the dynamics of your mate. So instead of, pointing fingers and passing the blame, how about sometimes you just sit down and say, what part did I play in this relationship? Because when you talk about, you hear women talk about men cheating. Some men don't get up just, I decide I want to cheat today. They don't do that. Like women don't get up and say, I want to cheat today. There is something that's lacking at home that causes somebody to cheat. Now, some of these men, that's all they know because that's the environment in which they came from. But do you think somebody get up in the morning and say, okay, today I decided to cheat? Do a checklist. What is not happening inside your relationship that you feel like is going left or it's going wrong? And a lot of it is communication. Sometimes we as women don't know how to communicate what we need and what we want. And we expect our mate to figure it out. Now we can tell it to everybody else, but the person you should tell it to, you don't tell it to. Then you want to blame him for not being able to fulfill your sexual needs because he don't know all your good spots to hit. But did you tell him your good spots to hit? Did you tell him that your earlobe do it for you? Did you tell him that the back of your neck do it for you? Did you tell him that running your finger down your back do it for you? Did you tell him kissing your kneecap do it for you? Did you tell him that? You tell it to everybody else, but you want to blame him for not being able to hit those spots, but you won't take ownership because you didn't tell him where your spots was. So we as women have to learn how to be better communicators. And a lot of times, yeah, you may not feel like doing it, but sometimes you have to suffer to be so for the greater good. And all the time, everything does not require a response. And these are life lessons lived and learned. I mean, in every relationship that you've been through, I would hope that as we go through these relationships, that we learn something from them. Not just to get into relationships, just to get into them, but to learn from them. Just like you go to a job. And I had a coworker I used to work with. And when I tell you she never wanted to work, but she always wanted a raise. And then she always wanted to blame, other things on why she didn't get a raise. Well, first of all, why would anybody feel the need to give you a raise when you stay out of your seat from your desk more so than you stay in your seat in your desk working? So now you want to blame the supervisor because they don't see the value in giving you a raise when you don't see the value in sitting down at your desk and doing your job. So take ownership to that. Nobody's going to give you a raise for not working. They're not going to do that. So why would you expect somebody to give you a raise for not working? We're so quick to blame others for our shortcomings. We're so quick to blame people when we don't get what we want when we think we should have it by those we think should give it to us. Life does not work that way. It doesn't. You have to plan. You have to know what you want. You have to know how to get what you need to get. You can't blame, you're not arriving and reaching your goals on somebody else when you didn't take the steps the steps to reach those goals. You didn't follow protocol. You didn't make a plan. You didn't do none of that. Take ownership to that. So you think things that's supposed to be handed to you on a platter, it don't work that way. It doesn't. As much as we would love for it to work that way, as much as we would love for things to drop in our lap, it does not work that way. And we can't blame nobody else for that but ourselves. We can't blame nobody for our not getting to where we need in home ownership. We can't blame nobody for not being financially stable. We can't blame nobody for that but ourselves. Especially when we know we don't monitor our money. We don't budget. We don't have visions. We don't have goals that we're trying to reach. So we're just living second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, and we don't have no plan. So if you don't have a plan, how can you expect to excel to the next level or get things that you want to get without a plan? You'll never get anywhere walking backwards. Try it. Try walking backwards down a block and see how far you get. Try it. Because you can't continue to blame everybody for your shortcomings. If you allow somebody to use you to make a fool out of you and you know they're using you and making a fool out of you, you can't blame nobody but yourself. That's it and that's all. If you know somebody is stealing from you, you can't blame nobody but yourself. Because if you continue to allow that to happen, you have to take ownership to that. You understand what I'm saying? Because I'm not being bothered with anybody that feel like if I'm helping you, you have to steal from me. I'm not blaming that on nobody else. I take ownership for continually allowing you to steal from me. And I know you're stealing from me. And I don't do nothing about it. I'm not doing that. So we blame a lot of things on other individuals that we should take ownership to for ourselves. If your household is broke down, you can't blame nobody else for your household being broke down. You can't blame anybody else for your kids not acting accordingly because you are the parent. You are the parent. And if you can't have control of your household, how do you expect somebody else to have control of your household? It's your household. You set the guidelines. You set the rules and the regulations in your household. So we want to blame, lack of opportunities, where the neighborhoods we live in, the schools we went to. Let me tell you something. If you do a research, there is a lot of homeless people that lived and came from um, foster care, like the gentleman who is the president of Walgreens. Check out his story. If he's still the president of Walgreens, came from foster care. But that didn't stop him. He pushed past his history and what happened to him in life, and he changed the narrative and made something better out of it. He didn't blame that his mama didn't take him. He didn't blame his daddy one day. Did it have an effect on him? Yes. But it motivated him not to live in what he came from. So we can waddle in self-pity. We can blame, our life and why we don't have what we should have on everything and everybody. But what are you going to do about it? What ownership are you going to take and say, look, I understand that my mom, my dad was all that, but I'm going to be better than my mother and my father. That is your choice. You can't keep blaming everybody. Again, as I said, parent does not come with instructions. And we don't know what happened in our parents' lives that caused them to do what they do or react the way they react. Again, when we become adults, we have a choice to break the cycle or to keep going. We can't blame it all on everybody else. Sometimes we have to take ownership. We can change the course and the direction of our life if we choose to. And we can't blame anybody for not reaching the goals that we want to reach. We can't. We can't blame anybody for not finishing school. We can't because we have the option to go back to school. Take ownership to that. If you want to start a business, don't blame nobody back. If you allow somebody to hold you back, you allow them to hold you back. But you can't blame anybody else for that. You just can't. So I'm saying, ladies, we have to take ownership to our part. And then taking ownership, we have to stand flat on our feet and look at the woman in the mirror and own up to our shortcomings, own up to our part. Stop using blaming others for what our woulda, coulda, shoulda been. We should stop doing that. Make the effort to create a better life for yourself in all areas, whatever it may be. Better education, shed some weight. A lot of things that we hold on to, you blaming others. These some of them people that died and gone on to heaven or wherever they went to, and you still holding on to what they did yesteryear, 20 years ago. And those that still living that you still blaming that you can't be in a relationship and you don't trust nobody and I don't know if I can love again. Don't blame that on that individual. You chose to stay in the shoes that you stand in. That's your choice. It is your choice. Because nobody can make you do something that you don't want to do. If you feel like you want a relationship, if you feel like you want to do whatever you want to do, you are the person who are capable is capable of doing it. You make that decision. And then if you make that decision, go forth with it. Don't let nobody stop you from doing what you need to do. Stop blaming others for our faults and our failures. It's not everybody's fault. Sometimes it is, and sometimes 99% of the time, a lot of it is our fault because we see a lot of things. Our instincts let us know a lot of things, and we still just go ahead and blame ourselves. And I don't understand why. So I'm saying to you, take a look at yourself and stop blaming others for things that you can take ownership of. Whether it's being a good mother, whether it's being a good boss, whether it's being a good friend, whether it's being a good listener, being a good company entrepreneur, whatever it may be, whatever it may be, you have to take ownership. Take ownership. It ain't about nobody else but you. It's self evaluation, ladies. Self evaluation. That's what it is. All right. So let me know what you think about this conversation. Share with other women. Let's dialogue because we're good at blaming. We're good at pointing the fingers at somebody else. And they say when you point one finger, even though they say that thumb, but when you look at that thumb curves. And that thumb curves back to who? It curves back to you. And then the other fingers go back to who? It goes back to you. So while you pointing one finger at somebody else, four fingers is pointing back at you. So be careful who you pass the blame off on that the blame don't belong to. And a lot of times we pass blame without even having all the facts. We go in and blame folks blindly without having all the facts. And because we're so wanting to people to be on our side, even though we're wrong, we want to act like we're right. It's easy to blame. That's the easiest thing we can do is blame somebody else for our faults and our failures. The hardest thing for us to do is take responsibility and ownership. And if you're going to be a better woman, if you're going to be a better young lady, if you're going to be a better individual, my suggestion to you is, as I suggest to myself, stand flat on your feet. Be the woman that you say you are. Take ownership to your part and stop passing the blame. Dissect it. Dissect what you get ready to blame somebody for. You blame somebody for stealing your man. Did they really steal him or did you give him away? You blame somebody from easing into your household and breaking up your marriage. Did they really ease in or did you open the door and let them walk right through? Did you set the tone? Because sometimes we as when we talk too much. Some things we should keep to ourselves, but we don't know how to keep it to ourselves. We brag to our girlfriends or to people that we think are our friends about certain things we should not talk about. Now there are some women you can talk about certain things, but do we know those women to whom we can really talk to? And everybody that you talk to don't have your best interests at heart. So blame yourself for that. Don't put that blame on anybody else. That is your fault. Take ownership to it. Again, like I say, put your big girl panties on. Wham. If they got to be granny panties, wham, with a smile. They're your panties. Wear them. That's what's holding your butt. that's holding all your stuff. Sit in your, when you sit down in them panties, your butt sits right in. Sit in that seat of the mess that you created. Don't blame nobody else. That's your mess. Clean it up. It's yours. That's all I'm saying. All right? All right, ladies. So it was a joy. I missed you all. I know Wednesday last week I was dealing with my niece's wedding. Had a lot of stuff going on. So I'm getting back on my grind though. I'm gonna post some pictures of some things I created for the wedding. All right. And I'll be back posting my t-shirts and my hair mask. And I'm gonna be still pushing that you all get a t-shirt and that you all try the hair mask. And follow us on our social media outlet. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go to awomansheart.org. Subscribe, brand your business, and let's work on being our better best selves. All right? All right, ladies, until we talk again, have a lovely evening. I miss y'all. I hope y'all miss me. All right. All right. So I hope y'all share this episode and for the replay. I hope that everyone enjoy. All right. Thank you. Okay, let's see how this is going to work. As you know, this has been acting really crazy, but we're going to try it.